Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. This episode is the 2025 Roland Garros quarterfinal prediction show. We're going to go through each and every men's singles quarterfinal matchup. I'll give you my predictions. I'll give you my keys. We'll talk about some of the fourth round stuff that's most relevant and interesting. Won't be quite as thorough on the recapping side of things as I've been in the previous three rounds, but we're going to get a whole lot more into the future casting of it all and looking at these quarterfinal matchups. Sometimes I do these shows with a guest. I did ask a couple of people, couldn't get the timing to work out, so we are solo. I'm going to go in reverse order, which I like to do to maximize shelf life. So it will be, well, let's see, it's Monday. So the Wednesday quarterfinal matchups, which are Alexander Zverev, Novak Djokovic, along with Jannik Sinner, Sasha Bublik. I'll start with those, and then we'll get to the Tuesday quarterfinals closer to the end of the show. Tommy Paul, Carlos Alcaraz, Lorenzo Musetti, Frances Tiafoe. All my semifinalists are in. Yes, they were the favorites. There were some surprises in terms of who they're playing at this stage, but no surprise in Alexander Zverev's quarter as far as the seeding goes. So let's start there, and I'll be pretty formulaic as I go through these. We'll talk about each player's path. We'll talk about what the head-to-head is, and then we'll get into the prediction stuff. All right, so Zverev's path. It's Lerner Tien, Jesper de Jong, Flavio Cobolli, and Talon Griekspoor. Versus Griekspoor, Zverev went down 3-1. He won 8 of the next 9 games. Talon retires with an ab injury. This was the round that most people, including myself, kind of assumed it was going to be Cerundolo, which has been a matchup nightmare for Zverev. Griekspoor hasn't been a matchup nightmare, but it's certainly been a tough one because if Talon has been, was a little more clutch in a lot of these matchups, it'd be a pretty even head-to-head. Most of these are exceptionally close. Unfortunately, ab injury for Griekspoor, and it makes that fourth round match kind of a non-discussion point. The Cobolli win was interesting. High on Cobolli, and Zverev wins that 6-2, 7-6, 6-1. I just didn't see much of it because I was prioritizing Draper-Fonseca. Those matches were happening simultaneously. So there's not a ton to talk about in regards to Zverev's path to this quarterfinal. Djokovic's path. Mackie McDonald, Corentin Moutet, Filip Misolic, and Cameron Norrie. Novak has not lost a set. Neither is Zverev, right? Yeah, I don't think Zverev. No, he lost one to de Jong. Never mind. So Djokovic has not lost a set, which helps the situation with his body, right? Come in, and the concern is that Djokovic is going to have to play 3 weeks in a row at the ripe age of 38 in the best-of-5 format when he's been injured 2 out of the last 3 slams, which has ultimately kind of taken him out. So it was always going to be important that he played quick matches. He's certainly had the draw to do it, and he's taken care of that draw. The only thing physically that we've seen is he's got blisters on both feet because against Norrie, it was, I don't know which time was left, which time was right, but, we've had both feet get worked on by physios mid-match. So clearly their blisters, not the worst thing in the world. Usually, like 95% of the time, totally manageable. The Norrie match today, pretty straightforward for Novak, even more so than when they played in Geneva a couple weeks ago. Cam does play some tactics that I don't think Novak particularly enjoys. The high, heavy ball off of Norrie's forehand, lots of topspin into Djokovic's backhand. It's a good tactic. I think Novak handled it pretty well. He tries not to get pushed back by that ball, take it on the rise, and I just think overall Norrie wasn't consistent enough in execution across the board in a matchup where he's definitely at a firepower deficit. He needs to be locked down, and he wasn't able to do that, especially because his first serve got eaten up, right? Djokovic had a field day with his return. Norrie was under 50% first serve points won. So great returning day for Novak. Highest ranked player we've seen Djokovic face since the clay season began remains world number 31, Hubert Hurkacz. So we have not gotten a great look at Djokovic versus certainly not tier 1 competition, not even tier 2 competition. And you could argue, depending on how you look at Hurkacz and a battling Cam Norrie, I don't know if I almost called him in form. Like, he's such a great fighter and such a great match player. I don't know that he's been like razor sharp throughout Roland Garros, but he's battled really, really well. So anyway, depending on how you think of those two players, I don't even know if you're going to go as far as saying Djokovic has faced tier 3 competition en route to this quarterfinal. So let's get to the head-to-head. It's 8-5 Djokovic. This is a rematch of their Australian Open semifinal at the last major, a retirement after one set of tennis. Now, that one set took an hour and 20 minutes. There's probably some revisionist history if you don't remember the match well and you think, okay, Djokovic was injured, he retired after a set. There probably wasn't much tennis to even, look at when it comes to that match. But I don't know. I mean, that's not quite true. It was a really competitive first set. Zverev was trying to make Djokovic suffer physically as much as possible. He was keeping the ball in play at all costs. He was not very aggressive in that opener. And it worked pretty well. He definitely started to tap into Djokovic's energy reserves, albeit while Novak was nursing discomfort and pain. Zverev got tight on big return points, so it ended up going into a tiebreak, and Djokovic missed an easy volley towards the tail end or on that set point in a tiebreak that was, I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, really close and still up in the air. And then Novak, because of the pain he was feeling, he retired. It was 3-0 Novak in slams until that match, which means, of course, in completed matches, Zverev has never beaten Djokovic in the best-of-5 format. Technically, the last 6 meetings are 3 apiece. That's a good number for Zverev. It includes, the Olympics in 2021, and I think it has gotten tougher for Novak to play these ultra-consistent baseline grinders in the last few years. Now, there's more to Zverev's game, but I think, especially after the serve, Zverev's game is very attritional, and he's somebody who does to Novak what Novak did to a lot of people over the years, which is, if I go backhand and we're trading cross courts, you're just going to get deep ball after deep ball after deep ball, and you'll crumble before I do, right? That's a lot of what Zverev does, and Djokovic used to be able to meet that style and basically go strength on strength, and now he kind of has to mix it up a little bit. He doesn't want to engage in that kind of physical war that Zverev tends to relish. And I think we've seen it with Medvedev and Zverev. Novak has, again, had more success than not, but he has had to change things up against those guys a little bit. It's made things interesting. Prediction-wise, couple of stuff to go over. I mean, Djokovic's offensive skills are far superior, in my opinion, after the serve, which mostly comes down to Novak's attacking forehand. More precise, more deadly, changes direction better, moves inside the court to take time away better, transitions forward with more, I think just he executes more consistently when he transitions forward, which is a smaller part of it. But I think the forehands are the main difference here, and Djokovic's trust in that shot to create damage and finish points, Zverev's lack of trust in that shot at times, which is why, and this has been a big problem for Zverev, I feel like the gap between these two offensively actually grows, becomes more pronounced under pressure. And in order for Djokovic to set that forehand-to-forehand pattern, I think there's a couple things we'll see from him. I think he will serve into Zverev's forehand more often than not on big points. That includes second serves, particularly on the deuce side. If Djokovic hits a second serve tee it's very easy for Zverev with his backhand to pull the ball basically inside in into Novak's backhand. If he gets a lot on the return, that Djokovic backhand probably goes cross court, and now we're in the Zverev pattern that he wants on the ad side. Versus if Djokovic serves Zverev's forehand on the second serve, now Sasha needs to, if he wants to get it to Djokovic's backhand, he needs to actually go down the line, which gives him even less time to recover middle and opens up potentially Djokovic's backhand cross court into open court. So it's far more likely that Zverev from that off of that slice serve wide just goes back cross court into Djokovic's forehand, and I think that's a preferred avenue for Novak to start the point. I also think we'll see a lot of one and done into Zverev's backhand wing. So Djokovic likes to spread the court. Like, that's what he does. He's not just going to go forehand, 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 forehand as far as directional into Zverev's side of the court. But I do think we'll see him change direction quickly once he goes into the backhand. I think he goes there once a lot and then goes back into the deuce side. I think Zverev is going to feel like backhand and backhand, he can live with Novak, if not beat him. I think shot tolerance-wise, he's going to feel like he can beat Djokovic, and I wouldn't be surprised if Zverev does a lot of, I'm going to keep the ball on Novak's backhand because I know that he can't really hurt me there, and that's how I'm going to extend points and start to eat away at the Djokovic physicality. What I think Zverev needs to be ready for if he implements that strategy is Djokovic is going to drop shot. I saw that a lot actually in the Norrie match when Cam was able to just drag the rallies to a certain point, especially when he was peppering Djokovic's backhand. It was usually not long until Novak just threw in that dropper. And the execution on Djokovic's backhand drop shot is normally excellent. He does not hit a lot of bad ones. He does not miss it all that often. So you gotta be ready to cover it and make a play when you get there, and that's going to be really key for Zverev. He's not always the best at that, but again, it needs to be something that he is just fully prepared for. I'm fascinated by the serving here. Zverev has more pace. Djokovic has more precision. I always find that this is often an example of Novak almost showing everybody how much accuracy matters on the serve, because I don't think it's a given that Zverev outserves Djokovic or gets the clear advantage in the serve return dynamics in this match. I'm interested in the mental aspect for Zverev. I think he could get more negative than we're used to seeing potentially. Some doubts have crept in the last 3 months, and we could see the result of that if things start going the wrong direction for Sasha. He knows that RG is his best slam, and he knows the window may be starting to close with Zverev at 28. If you think about, okay, how many more Roland Garroses is he going to have in his physical prime? What is that number? Is it 2? Is it 3? I mean, whatever it is, it's probably not 5. And because he's still searching for slam number 1, it's top of mind all the time. And I just wouldn't be surprised if Zverev has a little bit less composure than we're used to seeing in this match. I always prefer the way Djokovic plays under pressure in this matchup. I don't think I've ever picked Zverev over Djokovic at a major in my life, and I don't think I'm going to do it here for the first time. I mean, I think Novak is going to dig deep here with good energy reserves and play a great match where his forehand makes the difference in these rallies. We've already seen it with the Alcaraz quarterfinal in Australia. That burst is still there with Djokovic. I've seen those flashes from that Australian Open quarterfinal and the level that he played at the Miami Open and the level that he's played here en route to this quarterfinal, even though he's been untested. I've seen enough, and there's going to be a question of recovering if you're Djokovic, but I think he's going to win a war here. I'm going to go Novak in 5. And I know I've kind of hedged my bets here now because before the tournament, I thought Zverev would make it out of this quarter. But now that the match is here and Djokovic has looked as good as he has, he is my pick to win. We'll get to Sinner-Bublik after this break. Roland Garros coverage on Monday Match Analysis is brought to you by Go Sport. It's a family-owned company that specializes in just tennis bags, so they do it better. It stands up all on its own, which is one of my favorite parts. It's got more pockets than you could possibly ever need, and a black design that's sleek and matches all tennis racket brands. This compartment up here is special. It's ventilated, designed specifically for shoes and clothes. Check out gosport.com. That's Go, G-E-A-U, and use the code GIL10 for 10% off your order. It's my favorite bag that I've ever owned. Support them because they support us. Link to gosport.com is in the description. Make sure to check it out. Open it up in a new tab. Get to it after the show. All right? How can you beat that? Jannik Sinner, Alexander Bublik. Let's start with Sinner's path. He's got Rinderknech, or he had Rinderknech, Gasquet, Lehechka, and Rublev, and Jannik has been lethal. The score lines have been like mid-2000s Federer-like. Most games that he's lost was the Rinderknech match in the first round when he dropped 12. I thought that was, by the way, like the best match I've seen Artur play all year. He beats Rublev 6-1, 6-3, 6-4. There's not a ton to go over there. Andre couldn't handle the weight of shot coming into his backhand, really struggling to time the ball off of Sinner's depth and his heaviness, and also struggling, I thought Rublev was struggling to recover out of that corner. And all the combinations that Jannik is looking for with the hard backhand cross-court into the forehand inside in, or better yet, the forehand inside out, into the backhand down the line, or the forehand inside in, where he kind of had Rublev needing to recover into the open court after hitting an open stance backhand. All that was rough for Andre, but ultimately, like, these are two toe-to-toe linear ball strikers. Obviously, Sinner can do a whole lot more than that, but against Rublev, he doesn't really have to. That's what Andre is looking to do, and it's pretty much a terrible way to beat Jannik Sinner, or to try to beat Jannik Sinner, and I think I can leave it at that. We're going to have a lot more to talk to when it comes to Alexander Bublik. His path: Duckworth, de Minaur, Rocha, and Draper to make his first Slam quarterfinal. Let's talk about what happened today. Jack Draper. Bublik beats him after dropping the first set. Final scoreline 5-7, 6-3, 6-2, 6-4. I generally hate it so much when people say, Gill, was this more a case of the loser playing badly or the winner playing great? Or if they say, Gill, why'd you talk so much about the person who lost the match? It was really about the person who won it, which a lot of fans say when they want me to just like shower the winning player with praise without addressing the things that whoever lost the match probably could have done better. And the reason I hate that is because like every tennis match has a winner and a loser, and usually there's plenty of stuff to talk about from both perspectives. Things that the winner did in order to win, things that the loser did, or mistakes they made, regrets, struggles, stuff they could have maybe used to change the match. Like, it always goes both ways. There's a winner, there's a loser, and it's both. It's not one or the other. So I hate that framing of it. But if there was ever a time to be like, no, this was just about really the person who won the match, it would be a match like this, where Alexander Bublik took the racket out of Jack Draper's hands with an unbelievable barrage of offensive tennis, capitalizing on a skill set that is exceedingly rare on the tour. One of the bigger servers, and he hit 8 aces. Well, let me say this. Bublik had 68 winners in the 4 sets, 68 winners, 8 aces, 20 ground strokes, 14 volleys, 12 drop shots, 5 overheads, 6 passing shots. There's a couple of other stuff in there that I won't get into, but the volleys and the drop shots, huge number. Well, Bublik's hands, they're silky smooth. Does such a wonderful job of softening up his hands and dropping the ball short. 20 ground strokes. The power game is humming. I'm going to talk about it more later, but he's not lacking pace off the ground right now, as in the past sometimes he has. The 8 aces we know about his serve. The 6 passing shots. He's a shot maker. He can play on the run. For a guy his size, look, is he an awesome mover? No, but when he gets to the ball, he can make some magic happen because he's just that talented. So a lot of this was just a spectacular redlining Alexander Bublik playing the match of his life and putting in an all-time performance against a Jack Draper who was made to be a bit of a passenger in this match. And you can talk about, well, maybe he should have been doing more to take control, but I really don't blame Jack for thinking, I'm going to stay within myself and I'm going to stay solid, and at some point Bublik is going to come back down to earth, and this insane level is not going to last the whole time. And it lasted almost the whole time. I really thought the 4th set was going to be a psychological shift. Bublik comes into this 4th round match, heavy underdog, not supposed to win, and goes up 2-1. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, now the real match begins. Bublik has a lead. He's staring down his first ever major quarterfinal against a top 5 opponent. What happens in the first game of the 4th set, and this is a microcosm of what I was just talking about. Backhand down the line winner in a neutral rally from Bublik to start the game. Next point, Draper comes in on a decent approach, and Bublik hits a forehand cross-court sharply angled for a clean winner on the passing shot. Next point, another neutral rally. Again, it's on Bublik's backhand in the cross-court, and he hits a drop shot with his backhand down the line for a winner. And then at love 40, Draper makes a first serve into Bublik's body, and Sasha somehow slaps a forehand return winner inside in. He breaks at love. He hit 4 winners. He hit 4 winners and broke at love in the first game of the 4th set. That's how good he was. And he served well throughout the 4th to kind of maintain that lead. He got tight at 5-4, serving for the match. He almost melted down, and this is where you kind of look at Jack Draper and the 2 excruciating forehand unforced errors that Jack made from 15-40. The first one was a rally ball, a trade. The second one was an attack when he had a short ball. He had a chance to do some serious damage off of that ball and didn't hit any string. It was just shankopotamus off that second one. So that was Jack's moment. And if you're Draper, I mean, hopefully you're not watching or listening to the interviews that Bublik has been giving after this match, because he's telling everybody that in his mind, in that moment, he was thinking, this is my only chance. And if I don't hold serve right here, I'm not going to win the match. He was on the TNT desk saying that he probably wasn't going to play the 5th set, that he was probably going to lose 7-5 and then lose in the 5th. He's just an open book as far as what he's thinking and when he's thinking it. And he's literally telling everybody that that was his mentality in that service game, which again would be hard to hear for Jack Draper because he should have broken. I mean, the 15-40 point was just they were on even terms and Jack made a bad error. But then the 30-40 point, Draper was looking really good as far as getting a short ball onto his forehand. So that's the only area where I think Draper can be pretty disappointed with how that played out. But he has seemed a little bit nervy all tournament long, with the exception of the Fonseca match, which, I mean, again, just wasn't, never really got close or interesting. Jack has seemed a little bit on edge to me, but this is a great story with Bublik, and this success is not an accident. 15 clay court wins this year, and the most he's previously had is 7. And he's been asked, so what happened with the clay? What about hating clay? What happened to that? And what he explains is basically, look, I went into this clay court season and I was 80 in the world, and I couldn't afford to have a bad clay season, or I would have gone into the grass season in Wimbledon And it would have been like, if I lose a match at Wimbledon, I'm 150 in the world. Like, that was the situation that Sasha Bublik was in. So it became a matter of desperation. That helped Bublik embrace the clay. But I think in the larger picture, mentally, he hit a rock bottom and it helped. And he's telling a great story about how after Indian Wells, he lost to Yosuke Watanuki. I actually called that match, and it was just like, holy moly, Bublik has not won. And I don't remember the specific stat, but it was something like Bublik hasn't won 2 matches at a tournament since Wimbledon or something like that. And Sasha's now saying, I was talking about quitting. I hated it. But he was practicing hard, and he was trying to kind of work himself out of the rut. And apparently they went to Las Vegas after Indian Wells. It was Bublik's coach's idea to just go to Vegas. Shows up to Phoenix 5 hours before his first round match. And it kind of got him to just trust his talent again, because he wasn't driving himself nuts, putting in 4-hour practice sessions, which I know is not really Bublik's MO. But man, I mean, he's a complicated guy at the end of the day. A very relatable human, but a complicated guy. And I think just showing up to Phoenix after his bender and just going off of instinct and talent and changing his racket, it unlocked something, and he's kept that momentum. But technically what I'm seeing is big acceleration on his forehand wing, big RPM that has unlocked a level of high margin, repeatable forehand attacking that is a completely foreign thing for me with Bublik. I'm watching this Draper match, right? And I've seen Bublik serve out of a tree, serve opponents off the court. I've seen it time and time again. I've seen drop shot excellence, net rushing excellence with his hand skills. His two-handed backhand I've always liked a lot. I've seen all this. I have never seen the consistent heavy forehand that you can rely on. Never seen that from Bublik. And that's what I think he's unlocked, where he just feels like he never needs to slow down his racket and he can get the ball in every time. Where it used to be, he kind of played patty cake with his forehand a lot. And then sometimes he'd inject pace and he'd go after the ball, but then it turned into something pretty flat and erratic, which would spray all over the place. So he never found a great happy medium with his forehand. And now I've never seen Bublik so committed to getting in the right position with his feet, swinging hard at the ball into smart targets with the appropriate amount of safety and net clearance and all that. He's really become much better at the meat and potatoes from the back of the court, which you need so much on the clay. That said, he hasn't lost his identity. He's still being disruptive. All right, prediction. One thing that's interesting about this match is that Bublik is a way bigger disruptor than the guys that Sinner has been facing recently. Lehechka, Rublev, rhythm, power baseliners. And that's Sinner's comfort zone. That's his roots. That's where he, that's the kind of stuff that he can do with his eyes closed. And in that respect, all right, let's see what Bublik can make happen here. Can he hit 2 first serves if it comes down to that? Can he surprise Sinner on a big break point by hitting an 130-mile-per-hour second serve? Can he break up these baseline rallies with drop shots in a way that Jannik finds disruptive, along with just staying as solid as he has recently? Okay, interesting stuff. But I think there's going to be a huge emotional crash from Bublik. He called this the best moment of his life, beating Jack Draper. He cried after the match. He said he's never gotten emotional in his career, and suddenly he was just overcome with emotions. Probably because he had trouble even expressing exactly why he got so emotional from this win, but I think because things got so touch and go, or were so touch and go just a few months ago, and quickly realizing that he has more left in him, and it's the biggest win of his career at a major, undoubtedly. I don't want to sound crass here because I'm so happy for Sasha Bublik, but I got to be real. It's not a good sign when a guy is so emotionally moved before their next match. I mean, how many times have we seen it with big upsets at majors where you can tell if somebody is so satisfied and just so high from a win that it's probably going to be tough for them to play 2 days later and get back into the battle mode. I think Bublik's going to have a lot of trouble getting back into battle mode because, frankly, it's a challenge for him regardless. Sinner's return will be important. Jannik does have a new footwork pattern into the split step, which I love. I do it. I do it because Ferrer used to do it. Andy Murray used to do it. Kei Nishikori does this, where you're standing with your left foot in front of your right foot, and you're kind of timing it so that you're taking a step forward into your split step, just getting a little extra forward momentum into your split, which helps the body weight transfer forward into the return of serve. And I just wanted to bring it up because against a big server like Bublik, Sinner's first serve return is going to be key, and that's a change that he's made recently. Sinner's last loss against somebody outside the top 20 was against Dusan Lajovic, summer of 2023. I've got Sinner in 3. So those are your top half quarterfinals. Will it be another Djokovic-Sinner semifinal as I predict? That'd be a whole lot of fun. Obviously, there's a lot of mystery going into that Novak versus Sasha quarterfinal for a lot of reasons, and that's got to be the headliner of the entire quarterfinal lineup. And then with Bublik, it would be the ultimate Cinderella run if he's able to take out Jannik. I don't give him a great chance of doing it. We'll get to Paul versus Alcaraz. We'll get to Musetti versus Tiafoe. But first, a reminder that Monday Match Analysis is brought to you by 10S Tennis Supply, the go-to source for quality tennis equipment, court gear, and supplies. Whether you're coaching or running a club, 10S has the gear that keeps your sessions sharp. We are talking ball hoppers, carts, scorekeepers, custom windscreens, ball machines, and their new tweener LED professional court lighting. Coaches and players swear by the quality and the durability of 10S products. It's the kind of equipment that holds the test of time. Head over to 10s.com. That is the number 10-s.com. Order online or over the phone and save with bulk order pricing. It's available for qualified customers. Contact 10S to learn more. Tommy Paul, Carlos Alcaraz. Tommy Paul's path was through Elmer Moeller, Martin Fucsovics, Karen Khachanov, and Alexei Popyrin. And you talk about elite fitness, elite toughness. Those are the only two things that have made this run possible for Tommy Paul. Down 2-0 against Fucsovics, it looked over. Having to go 5 against Khachanov in the very next round, especially given just how battle-tested and how physical Karen Khachanov is himself, for Paul to come through that 5-setter, incredibly impressive. And then the 4th round against Alexei Popyrin was his first straight set match of the tournament. He wins it 3-3 and 3. I actually didn't see this match, but I've had my concerns watching Popyrin. Although he's playing great tennis, or was playing great tennis, I do feel like his backhand has been exposable. Check the stats. He definitely got outplayed there. Tommy Paul ended up with 3 winners, 4 unforced errors off of his backhand. Popyrin, 1 winner, 12 unforced errors. And Alexei only won 37% of his second serve points. I would bet a lot of that was Tommy jamming that second serve return into Popyrin's backhand corner, starting the point from there and giving him an immediate advantage. Alcaraz's path. Zepietti, Marozsan, Zhumer, and Shelton. He has lost a set in each of his last 3 matches. Let's talk about the Ben Shelton match in a little bit of detail, though, because it's worth it. High octane, high level of tennis. Really, really entertaining match. And my biggest takeaway is that this was a really encouraging loss for Ben Shelton based on his level. We've seen him in these matches before, deep in slams against top players. And it's always been, whether it be the Djokovic match in New York or the Sinner match earlier this year, most of them have been pretty dominant. And this one was a lot closer. I think Ben should be heartened by that. And a lot of what I saw was just flat out impressive from the American side of things. He had a couple of set points in the first set. The first one was a longish rally where Shelton was kind of hitting backhand after backhand after backhand. Alcaraz eventually comes in on a forehand cross-court approach. Shelton hits his backhand passing shot hard up the middle, and Alcaraz is so good at blunting that big-time pace, and he hits the drop volley. It was a drop volley that a lot of players would probably struggle with. Second set point was a second serve from Shelton. Alcaraz throws up this super high backhand loop return, basically a moonball, and Shelton gets the positioning wrong, trying to take it on the rise. He shanks the forehand from up high. There was another point after that where Shelton accepted some backhands that I didn't think he had to. And by the way, on the first set point, I thought he accepted some backhands that I didn't think he had to. And Alcaraz was just able to, probe into that Shelton backhand. Ben had some moments where the two-hander, by Shelton standards, held up really well. But there's a difference between it held up really well and it went toe-to-toe with the baseline game of Carlos Alcaraz. There's a huge difference there. And I think the learning point for Shelton, and one of the few things that I'd point to in this match and say, well, Shelton could have tweaked this and maybe given himself a better chance. Well, he's got to learn from Nadal. Rafa, on a big point, was going to get around every ball possible. He was going to exert that extra energy to do it. There were balls that, everybody says that Nadal played every point the same. They're kind of right, but okay, there's some nuance there. There were balls at the end of a tiebreak or on a big break point that Rafa would create forehands with and just burn that extra energy with the feet. Whereas maybe on a normal point that wasn't so high leverage, he would accept a backhand. So for me, Shelton, there's no excuse on a huge point, given his assets, the forehand that he possesses and the backhand that he possesses. There's no excuse for hitting a backhand off of a ball that he can easily get around, in my opinion. Because Shelton, in a lot of areas, I think, matched Alcaraz. When it comes to the serve, he can outplay Carlos. I think on the forehand wing, he hit his forehand just as well as Alcaraz, which is high praise for Ben. He played with just as much variety as Alcaraz, which is high praise for Ben. But where Carlos ended up getting him is in the backhand stability, and the net finishing is also kind of a difference for Carlos, along with some of the movement and the defensive stuff, where Alcaraz can gain a little bit on the margins there as well. When it comes to backhand stability, the two things to look at is Ben, he doesn't really get to where he needs to be in consistency or quality at times. From a consistency standpoint, unforced errors, Shelton 22, Alcaraz 11. The Shelton backhand is a bit of a target on approach shots. When you go there, Shelton, if you hit a good approach shot, he's normally not going to come up with a spectacular pass off of his backhand. And also the weight of shot on his cross-court rally ball. I felt like Alcaraz hitting backhands cross-court, there's more on that ball, and it's a little tougher for Shelton to make that change of direction on the forehand down the line, where Shelton, who hits a much flatter backhand, and I think on average hits a bit of a slower backhand as well. There were points where, again, Carlos could just probe, find the ball that was manageable enough for Carlos to rip that forehand down the line off of. And I thought that was a difference. So that is the Alcaraz-Shelton match. Again, it was a wonderful match to witness. So head-to-head between Alcaraz and Paul, 4-2 Alcaraz. Tommy famously beat Carlos back-to-back years in Canada, 2022 and 2023. And of the 6 meetings, only 2 of them have been in straight sets. Tommy, I feel like I've talked about this recently. I forget which match I covered. Was it Sinner-Paul? Maybe it was that. Tommy usually starts hitting like 20% harder against these top guys. And sometimes it looks awesome, but usually at a certain point, it means errors are going to come. I've seen a pattern in these matches against top 5 players with Paul where the first set and the second set are usually really tight, and then the third set and the fourth set are usually kind of runaway city for the elite player who Tommy is facing. So for whatever reason, it's just hard for him to hang with these guys, obviously, and because it's so hard, you see that drop off as the match gets further and further along. So that's something to look out for. But ultimately, like, I think Paul's best game, the one that he won with in Canada those 2 times, are, suffocating court position, aggressive returns, net rushing. That's the Tommy Paul that I think is most effective and most dangerous. Is that possible on clay, where you're getting less traction at the net, so it's a bit tougher to move up there? You're generally getting less damage on your approach shot. We saw it against Jannik Sinner in that Rome semifinal. Tommy couldn't get to the net at all. The only thing that I could see working with Carlos is serve and volley, maybe some serve +1 approach, just to get there quickly and to try to take advantage of that deeper court positioning right away in the point. Alcaraz recovers that so quickly that once you've missed that window on the serve +1, it's pretty much over. But man, I mean, it's a tough position to be in my opinion, if you're looking at a guy in Tommy Paul who has to come to the net, but they're playing this match on a clay court. Now, what might work for Carlos? What do I think Carlos should do? I think Alcaraz should be doing a lot of trading through the middle of the court, especially into Paul's forehand. Not let the points get overly athletic. I think this is not normally a thing for Alcaraz, but if you allow Tommy to start to make the points very lateral, he can... he's just a beast in these situations, and he can go toe-to-toe with Alcaraz. But I think when you take away his angles a little bit more, go deep at his forehand, there's not as much Tommy can create from that position. And when he does try to create, that's where you get the errors. I think we'll see the higher, slower ball to Tommy's backhand. Paul has, more of that bunty backhand. He doesn't love to generate from above his shoulders, which is the case for most. And one of the things that limits Tommy Paul against these top guys is first serve damage. So I briefly touched on it with Alcaraz matches in the lead-in here when I've talked about Carlos against Fabian Marozsan or Carlos versus Damir Zhumer. And these guys are having to beat Alcaraz in rally after rally after rally. It's so hard against the fastest player in the world, the hardest hitter in the world. Like, it's a tough formula, and I found that's one of the reasons why Paul has been kind of stuck in that tier 2, tier 3 zone, is because he goes up against these guys and doesn't get much help from his serve. So that's something to look out for. So in conclusion, it's always my same issue with Tommy. He doesn't match up in the ball striking with these elite guys, and I don't think he can get forward enough in this case. So I've got Alcaraz in 4. Tommy can usually redline for a set in these sorts of matchups, and he's been winning sets in these matchups, so that's why I'm going Alcaraz in 4. We finish on Lorenzo Musetti versus Frances Tiafoe. Musetti's path: Hanfmann, Galan, Novone, and Rune. Now, the names aren't big there, but it's all clay guys. Hanfmann, Galan, Novone. Those are players who are really comfortable on the surface, and I think it's been like an underratedly impressive path for Musetti in terms of how easily he's beaten some of these guys. Not to say that like Hanfmann or Galan are like super threatening. Don't get me wrong, but let's talk about the Rune win in the 4th round. And this is one where Musetti did his thing. I don't think Musetti played above his average level, and I think he was in his comfort zone, and he was just so physical and consistent and difficult to finish against, where his rally tolerance just wore down Holger, and Rune couldn't come close to matching Musetti's consistency. This was one of these rare matches where 9+ rallies were the difference maker. If you look at the rally lengths from inside 1 shot through 8 shots, Rune actually had an advantage. 9+ rallies were as lopsided as you'll see. 29-13 Musetti. Within those sets of points, unforced errors were 15-5. And total unforced errors for this match was 55-34. Rune, by the 3rd set, was in point shortening mode. He did not want to let these rallies get extended. And when you're playing Lorenzo Musetti on clay at night, short points are simply not an option. He defends way too well. If you don't have the fitness to play rallies, you are simply going to lose. And for Holger, I don't think this was tactics. I don't think Rune was like, I'm going to come to the net really, really quickly. I'm going to be hyper-aggressive on my forehand. I think it was his fitness. I think he didn't have the legs to dig in and play rallies with Musetti on a regular basis, and therefore he had to get a little bit desperate with his aggression levels. That's what I saw. It's the Gil Reyes quote, "Weak legs command, strong legs obey." Sometimes your tactics are dictated by your legs, not by the smartest way to play. Now, Rune has been, the generous reading for Holger is he's been sick a lot, so maybe he didn't come into the event with the conditioning that he would hope to have. And after the 5-setter against Alice, he was just running on fumes. That said, the past couple years, we've seen a similar pattern. I feel like maybe around 50% of the slams Rune has played, he's ended up exiting the tournament basically on empty. Australian Open versus Sinner, that was tough sledding physically for Holger. Lost that match 6-2 in a 4th. Wimbledon round of 16 versus Djokovic. He had just played a 5-setter with Alice and had a pretty disappointing performance against Djokovic, which he lost in straights to follow up that 5-setter with Alice. Sounds kind of familiar. Round of 16 at Roland Garros versus Zverev last year. 6-2 in the 5th. A little bit tired towards the end. So, a couple things. He needs to be more efficient against lower-ranked guys. That's the first thing. He's playing a lot of long matches against your Alices of the world. Or he needs to be more fit. Or he can go 5 against Alice, but he's got to get a little more fit. A lot of credit goes to Musetti's defense, no doubt. Constant defensive lobs against what was a very shaky Rune overhead. Whenever Lorenzo got a racket on the ball, even from the most desperate of situations, he was pretty much able to throw up a lob and make Rune hit an overhead. And he stole a bunch of points that way. And there were a lot of great passing shots. The way Rune was primarily looking to shorten the points was he was just getting forward, which is a better way to do it. I'd rather him do it like that than I'm going to hit 95-mile-per-hour forehands. You know how I hate when Rune goes into that mode, because I just don't think I don't think his forehand really has that in it. But credit to Musetti, because it didn't matter really which way Rune approached. If he didn't build a great advantage in the point, even if he went to Musetti's backhand, that backhand pass was humming. I thought this was, although Musetti didn't play like a stellar match, and I think he only played like by his standards, close to an average match, I do think his drive backhand was feeling it throughout this match. Tiafoe's path. He went through Sefulin, Carreño Busta, Korda, and Altmaier. Frances Tiafoe in a Roland Garros quarterfinal. There were no Americans in an RG quarterfinal since 1994. Andre Agassi. I mean, talk about, I'm sorry, like that's a little bit of an embarrassing stat. And by the way, I will say right now, the last American player to beat a top 10 opponent at Roland Garros is Jan-Michael Gamble. I think it was around like 02 or 03. I forget when exactly. So it's been a long time. That's the history that's working against Tommy Paul and Frances Tiafoe in a couple of days from now. Tiafoe against Daniel Altmaier did exactly what Taylor Fritz didn't do. He pushed him back. He won the court position battle, got himself into aggressive positions, and then got forward to finish. And the forward part is the part that Taylor Fritz is just not so on board with, but really important against Altmaier because, man, he gets balls back. Tiafoe, in the big picture, I will say he's just a proven big match player. Best of 3 now for his career, 51% win rate. Best of 5, 59% win rate. Yes, he's gotten a lot of draw help. Versus top 20 opponents on clay, his career record is 2-8, and it's been a while. His wins came over Carreño Busta in 2018 Estoril and Basilashvili in 2019. That was in Madrid. 2-8, and it's been 6 years. Head-to-head, though, encouraging for Frances Tiafoe. He leads at 3-2. There's a Musetti retirement in there, so it's more like 2-all at tour level. They did play a couple of challengers in 2020. If you want to include those, head-to-head becomes 3-all. They've played a lot of close matches, although that does not include Cincinnati last year, their most recent meeting, in which Frances really ran away with it. But I also noticed the one other thing that I picked up looking at their head-to-head is Musetti has played Tiafoe in pretty bad weeks to play Tiafoe. He played him last 2 times. Stuttgart 2023. Frances won that event. No, yeah, he did. He won that event. And Cincinnati last year, Frances made it all the way to the final. So he was in really great form on both occasions. Prediction here. Look, the difference in resume here is enormous. Musetti has been consistently clay, big tournament after big tournament after big tournament on clay. He's been finding himself in semifinals or better, and that's why he was number 3 in my power rankings. Frances Tiafoe would not have sniffed my Roland Garros power rankings coming into the tournament, and it's not as if his route to get to this match has just been all that impressive. So, that right there is a big deal. But I will say is there is some Draper-Bublik dynamic here. Musetti is a favorite in a major quarterfinal for the first time. Now, he's won a major quarterfinal before. Wimbledon last year, Taylor Fritz. Guess what? Taylor was supposed to win that match. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Musetti has, I think, increased his respect level across the board, whether it be in the media, in the locker room. Probably the way he thinks about himself at this point is even a little bit different. So a Fritz Musetti Wimbledon quarterfinal, if you can believe it, Taylor, he was supposed to win. So this is a little bit different. Musetti will be very aware of that. He's supposed to win. And Tiafoe, on the other hand, didn't expect to be here at all. It's house money at this point. He's not going to shy away from a big moment in general. And he's got some uncomfortable qualities about him. He can get hot with his first serve. He has finishing power on his forehand. He's got great hands at the net. So again, it's like you just see a lot of Draper-Bublik dynamic in there. Ultimately, I think Musetti is going to do a bunch of things. I think he'll get it up high on Tiafoe's backhand. I think he'll drag Foe outside the sidelines and really bring his movement into play. He's still not the best clay court mover. And I think Musetti's going to demand an incredibly high level of consistency from Tiafoe by making returns and making extra balls. And if Frances blinks on the forehand, which he can once in a while, he's going to pay for it every single time. So I'm going to go Lorenzo in 4. Because of those mental dynamics and Tiafoe's weapons, I do think he takes 1 set. So I've only slightly had to shift my thinking from pre-tournament. The only difference is I do have Djokovic winning instead of Alexander Zverev, but it's shaping up to be a great quarterfinals and a great finish to Roland Garros 2025. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.